The flawless marvel, Bob Paris, was one of the brightest rising stars of 80s bodybuilding. The guy had it all: tall, proportioned, symmetrical, unparalleled aesthetics, male model good looks, articulate, infinitely marketable, and a cover fixture of every magazine from that era. A larger version of Steve Reeves or Frank Zane, Paris was considered by many as the second coming of Schwarzenegger due to his mainstream crossover potential. Yet amazingly, in all his time competing, he never once won a single professional contest. In his groundbreaking memoir, Gorilla Suit, Bob Paris recounts his story of chasing the bodybuilding dream, only to question that after reaching the peak, whether he had scaled the wrong mountain to begin with. It's one of the first eye-opening, candid, and dark-side view of bodybuilding's seedy underbelly, written by one of its top-ranked insiders. Bodybuilding always has and always will be a magnet for misfits, providing fertile ground for stories of self-creation and charting the ascension of its most celebrated figures. Most of these mythologies are whimsical bullshit, recurring tropes of rags to riches fictions, underdog heroes bootstrapping their way to fame and fortune through sheer hard work and determination. For Paris, bodybuilding was misunderstood, underappreciated, considered the realms of freaks, but also beautiful, graceful and thrilling, lifting one high above the dull thud of conformity. A fraught relationship with an alcoholic father, the troubled teen often contemplated ending it all. Bodybuilding offered Paris a means of escape through reinvention. The definition of definition is reinvention, Henry Rollins once wrote about his relationship with the iron. There is no better way to fight weakness than with strength. To not be like your parents, to not be like your friends, to be yourself. Once the mind and body have been awakened to their true potential, it's impossible to turn back. So, broken penniless, a 19-year-old Paris made the pilgrimage to the California Mecca, living in his car and pursuing the bodybuilding lifestyle, building his American dream, one rep at a time. Like Sam Fussel's memoir, Confessions of an Unlikely Bodybuilder, Paris's story details the process of adding slabs of muscle as metaphorical armor designed to keep the world at bay, while hiding and confining the weakling within. Paris's gorilla suit offered similar protection while providing a cover for the secret he kept hidden from the world. I hated myself. It was that simple, Paris explains. My limbs were all in the wrong places. My teeth were weird. The hair on my head from outer space. The hair sprouting from my chest. Embarrassing. 4 years after arriving a homeless teenager, Paris had forged himself from iron into a world champion, winning both the Mr. America and Mr. Universe titles. What should have been the peak of a blossoming career, Paris describes how his world came crashing down when he came out as the first competing gay pro athlete in 1989. Appearing soon thereafter with husband Rod Jackson on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Paris discussed his experience at a time when gay marriage was both illegal and socially rejected. Paris claims the backlash was swift and palpable. I lost about 80% of my business. I literally had doors closed in my face. There were a number of times where my life was threatened. From Sandow to Schwarzenegger and beyond, bodybuilding has always held an unspoken tension with its connotations and alignment with gay culture. Dubbed the most perfectly built man of the 20th century, Eugene Sandow garnered worldwide fame and wealth, even while transgressing the era's social taboos. Yet the sexuality of Sandow has also long been a topic of contention. For those who could afford $300, a huge asking price for the time, Sandow invited male spectators to join him in his dressing room, posing nude for their pleasure, or feeling his body and fingering his muscles. Sandow lived with a male companion later in life, separate from his wife and child. His wife, Blanche, burnt most of his personal correspondence when he died, and buried him ignominiously and an unmarked South London grave. Nude photographs of Jack LaLanne in his prime were likewise favourites among gay collectors. Steve Reeves was claimed to hustle sexual favours for cash in his early days. Even Arnold the Great posed for the gay magazine After Dark, speaking of the advances of gay admirers who wished to sponsor him in his rise to fame. George Butler faced ridicule and rejection getting his book Pumping Iron published because of bodybuilding's inherent gay stigma. Doubleday cancelled Butler's contract, explaining that no one in America will buy a book of pictures of half-unclothed men of dubious sexual pursuits. The New York Times simply dismissed it as fag bait. Thanks to Pumping Iron, Schwarzenegger not only normalized bodybuilding for a general audience, he was also the first to heterosexualize it. Paris's coming out, however, peeled back the curtain on an industry which failed to even acknowledge the topic, despite some of its top competitors participating in gay porn or gay for pay to finance their bodybuilding pursuits. According to Paris, the myth that all bodybuilders were gay caused great psychic unrest among the straight men who ran the sport. They took great strides to prove what a wholesome heterosexual pastime it was. Any suggestions of homoeroticism were countered with ironic, over-the-top displays of masculinity. Paris was regularly draped with bikini-clad models for magazine photo shoots in a charade to sell a hyper-masculine image. Paris claims that he was even denied an Olympia title simply because he was openly gay, even despite the behind-the-scenes gay-for-pay activities that many top-ranked bodybuilders covertly participated in. It's a claim supported by Alan Klein's anthropological examination of 80s bodybuilding in his book titled Little Big Men. Klein juxtaposed the incongruent homophobia present in California's gyms against the large percentage of the sport's top bodybuilders who readily engaged in hustling, a term used to describe the widespread selling of sexual favours by bodybuilders to gay men. As one bodybuilder interviewed stated, "It's kind of sad. We put bodybuilding in a shitty situation. To be laughed at. Who's going to help us bodybuilders? A bunch of homosexuals, that's who. Where everything the US is supposed to stand for. Strength, determination, everything to be admired. But it's not the girls who like us. It's the fags." This was also the era when AIDS represented a death sentence for those who contracted it. To the public, the gay community became the face of the misunderstood AIDS epidemic, something to be ostracized, maligned, and avoided. At the helm of all this was Joe Weider, the industry kingmaker whose whims could make or break a competitor's career. Paris claims that his own career was derailed not only for his honest outspokenness, but also his reluctance to kowtow to the bodybuilding czars and their corrupt politics. It's a claim holding more truth than Paris first realized. For Paris, my own goal was to build the most perfect human sculpture possible, raging against those who are by choice bulkier, the monsters, lugs, overbuilt caricatures, clanging through gruesome contortions. While many attributed Dorian Yates's meteoric rise as the catalyst for bodybuilding's divergence into the era of mass monsters and freaks, Paris may also have unintentionally influenced this inexorable shift. With Paris representing and declaring the beauty of the classical physique, it cemented the connection between the classical body and its appeal to gay men. For an industry disassociating itself from the anxiety of becoming a homoerotic beauty pageant, it necessitated a reinterpretation and literal transformation of the physiques that were on stage. Huge mass lacked any erotic or homosexual overtones. Freakiness was now a proxy for good old blue-collar heterosexuality and was exemplified by the rise of the late 80s and early 1990s mass monsters. One look at a 270-pound half-bald bespectacled freak Nasser El-Sambadi and the audience instantly recognizes that this isn't some eroticized male beauty pageant. For Paris, this trend signified the end of the road for his personal bodybuilding journey. By the time I had stopped competing, I hated bodybuilding and the direction it was headed in. I saw bodybuilding as a road towards the perfect physical specimen. The dominant culture of the sport for the last 10 years has been grotesque freakiness for the sake of freakiness. Coming out as gay used to ruin any career, let alone one which covertly stigmatized any association with the gay community like bodybuilding. But was Paris correct in his assessment that the bodybuilding industry willfully destroyed his career for coming out as gay? While the act of self-creation is often difficult to distinguish from self-delusion, part of the appeal of bodybuilding is that it allows its participants to undertake both processes simultaneously. At the end of my bodybuilding rainbow, instead of a pot of gold, there was complication, and beyond that, frustration. Weider may have been an ego-driven megalomaniac, but he was first and foremost a canny businessman who knew how to milk any potential cash cow. Let's not also forget that Weider built his empire off the profitability of his own publications, with content squarely aimed at the gay community. Joe was all about making a buck first, ethics and morality be damned. I also remember that the magazines lent their support and positivity to Paris when he first came out in '89. It wasn't the instantaneous marginalization and career-scuttling disaster that Paris claimed. In 2006, Flex magazine ranked Paris as the most aesthetic athlete in the history of bodybuilding. There was no denying Paris's enduring, multi-generational marketability, whatever his sexual identity. Likewise, Bob was in terrible shape for his 90 and 91 showings, so he hardly could blame politics for those awful but otherwise deserved placings. Bodybuilding isn't just about possessing the prettiest genetics, it's about who can deliver on the day of the contest also. So could it be that Bob simply saw the writing on the wall with the impending divergence in physique trends? Sensing that his physique would never receive top honours, a disillusioned Paris subsequently turned on the sport. Some claim that bodybuilding became a convenient stepping stone, a scapegoat and soapbox to advance his personal agenda. The powers that be may or may not have prejudiced and marginalised him, but on removing the gorilla suit, Paris also renounced any and all future association with bodybuilding. Even 30 years after he walked away, Bob won't even engage so much as an interview with anyone from the industry. That's a heck of a long time to hold a grudge. Many insinuate that Paris fell out of love with bodybuilding more than bodybuilding fell out of love with him. The whole thing seems analogous to one of the contemporary social media fitness divas who, after achieving mediocre placings in the competitive ranks, suddenly blows out post-contest, gaining enormous amounts of weight, only to suddenly switch gears, engaging in a bitter crusade as a reform advocate for body positivity and healthy at any size. The pivot towards victimhood has always attracted its fair share of spotlight, activist currency, and social cachet. It's a transparent move that screams sour grapes. The potential pulpit offered by the mainstream media for a disgruntled ex-insider has always resonated with the public conditioned by negative messaging aimed at shitting on bodybuilding. Tilting at windmills also often beats eking out a living in one of the world's lowest paying and most physically demanding sports. For an articulate, self-appointed advocate and pioneer for gay rights like Paris, it seemed a well-timed and strategic career move to distance himself from bodybuilding while still profiting from its imagery and association. As an aspiring amateur actor, it was also no secret that Paris was chasing that Hollywood limelight and celebrity. Gorilla Suit, with its unique insider narrative, conveniently doubles as a ready-made press kit, followed by many more book offerings to come, all of them beating the same drum. Paris also railed against the vampire-like, soul-sucking and dehumanizing chemical demands that he claimed was ruining bodybuilding. He candidly reveals his own drug use in the book, saying how he could only scrape together 2 to 3 weeks worth of funds at a time to cover his growth hormone expenses. Yet decrying drugs in bodybuilding as a pro athlete is akin to complaining about water being wet. It simply amounts to easy sensationalism and convenient media soundbites. Paris had to know about the Faustian bargain required to compete at the highest level, and he also had to know that it's a topic of debate with neither end nor answers. No one forced Paris to take PEDs. For bodybuilders, it's simply the shit-covered baton that one generation passes to the next, while hypocritically pointing the finger with contemptuous disdain. And while it's noble that Paris pushed for a more rigorous drug testing and a drug-free sport, we need to live in the world as it exists and not the world we wished it was. Creating awareness by raising the issues as a self-nominated whistleblower is fine, but you don't get to complain about the heat when you're setting yourself on fire in the process of evangelistic self-immolation. Bob also later claimed that he should have won 2 Olympias, which is ridiculous and only undermines his credibility and rationality. Confusing the actual judging standards for his own, there's no way that Paris would ever have beaten the dominant Lee Haney. If bodybuilding had been a pure art form, Paris might have deserved a Mr. Olympia, but it's always been, first and foremost, a muscle show with a blend of aesthetics and art for measure. The undeniable march towards bigger and freakier physiques, whether you like it or not, has always been the hallmark of bodybuilding's natural or not so natural progression. Pandora's box was open long before Bob's time, and there's no stuffing the fans' desire for the freaks back inside. Bodybuilding helped Paris escape his fraught provincial childhood existence and brought him a degree of international recognition. But like Fussell and so many others, neither bodybuilding nor fame could fill the gaping psychological void in the soul left over from his very troubled youth. The shock value of Bob Paris coming out as gay is a vestige of a different time. Fitness athletes now constitute a wide spectrum of gender and sexual identities. But Paris can definitely be credited as one of the first who put everything on the line to speak out and lay the groundwork on the issues that he passionately advocated, while others agreed but remained silent. Paris was also one of the first to pioneer an outspoken anti-drug stance. He didn't succumb to the pressure to compromise his trademark timeless perfection, and he endeavoured to push the sport towards a more overall artistic direction. Gorilla Suit was really the first public invitation into the dark side of bodybuilding. Bob Paris's rise from homeless teenager to championship bodybuilder alone shows tremendous heart and determination. Paris outgrew the constrictive Gorilla Suit and eventually the sport of bodybuilding. It's just a shame that he turned his back on the fans who'd still love to hear more details about his bodybuilding experiences, opinions, and misadventures today.